What are or is the Sanhedrin? I'm reading from the Bible Dictionary by Webster that is in the back of my Cambridge edition of the King James Version. The Sanhedrin is the Jewish Senate and the highest native court in both civil and ecclesiastical matters in Israel. Under the presidency of the high priest, it regulated the whole internal affairs of the Jewish nation. It is first definitely mentioned in the days of Antiochus the Great, who was 223 BC, but it may date from a somewhat earlier period. No historical connection can be established between it and Moses' council of 70 elders. It consisted of 71 members. The Sanhedrin consisted of 71 members and had an aristocratic character, being drawn from the three classes of chief priests, scribes, and elders. In the time of our Lord, the Pharisees had the predominating influence upon it. But there were Sadducees, elements, chief priests, scribes also. The powers of the Sanhedrin were extensive, for the Greek and Roman masters of the Jews granted them a considerable amount of self-government. From the New Testament, we gather that it was the Supreme Court of Justice in all cases, and that it had officers of its own who arrested accused persons and carried out its sentences and decrees. Questions involving life and death were removed from its cognizance 40 years before the destruction of Jerusalem. The stoning of Stephen cannot be regarded as a judicial execution, and the Roman authorities could remove a prisoner from the jurisdiction of the Sanhedrin. The extent of the Sanhedrin's legal jurisdiction varied at different times. Herod, when governor of Galilee, around 47 BC, was summoned before it. At the time of our Lord, its jurisdiction was restricted to Judea proper. In Galilee, Christ was beyond its power. The Sanhedrin's decisions were nevertheless regarded as morally binding all over the Jewish world. Thus we find it issuing letters to the synagogues of Damascus, ordering the arrest and removal to Jerusalem of the Christians of that place of Damascus. Besides, and we're about to find out about that in Acts chapter 8. Where am I? Besides the Supreme National Sanhedrin of Jerusalem, there were inferior local courts in all the Jewish cities. To these the name Sanhedrin was also given. Okay, there you have it. What is Sanhedrin? I'm also going to read what is or who are the Pharisees. Pharisees were a religious party among the Jews. The name denotes separatists. They prided themselves on their strict observance of the law and on the care with which they avoided contact with unclean things like Gentiles. Their belief included the doctrine of immortality and resurrection of the body and the existence of angels and spirits. They upheld the authority of oral tradition as of equal value with the written law. The tendency of their teaching was to reduce religion to the observance of a multiplicity of ceremonial rules and to encourage self-sufficiency and spiritual pride. For our Lord's judgment on them and their works, see Matthew 23, Mark chapter 7, and or Luke chapter 11. Our Lord did not care for them. I'll read one more definition from this wonderful dictionary. Hypocrite. The word generally denotes one who pretends to be religious when he is not, though it is sometimes used to mean simply a bad man. Hypocrisy was the besetting sin of the Pharisees and was severely condemned by our Lord. Okay, so now we've had a little study of what was the Sanhedrin and who are Pharisees and what is a hypocrite.